I sat in the mahogany-paneled conference room of Patterson and Associates law firm, still numb from burying both parents in a car accident 2 weeks ago. My younger sister Amanda sat across from me, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. The family lawyer, Mr. Patterson, opened the will. Amanda receives $18 million, the family home in Connecticut, and the vacation property in Martha's Vineyard. Then Patterson looks at me and reads their final words. Clay has always been independent. Let him earn his own way like he wanted. The room spins. The words echoed in my head like a cruel joke. Let him earn his own way like he wanted. My hands gripped the leather armrest of the chair so hard my knuckles turned white. I couldn't breathe. The air conditioning hummed overhead, indifferent to the fact that my entire world had just shattered into a million pieces. Mr. Patterson kept reading, his voice a steady drone, listing off stock portfolios, bonds, real estate holdings. All of it going to Amanda. Every single asset my parents had built over 40 years of marriage. $18 million. The number was so large it didn't feel real. I stared at my sister across the polished conference table. She looked up at me through her tears, and for just a second, I saw something flicker across her face. Not sadness, not shock, something else. Relief, maybe. Or vindication. I'm so sorry, Clay, she whispered, reaching across the table like she wanted to touch my hand. I pulled back instinctively. Maybe they thought you were doing fine on your own. Fine on my own. Right. I wanted to laugh, but my throat was too tight. I thought about my student loans, $40,000 still hanging over my head like a dark cloud. I thought about my studio apartment in Queens, so small I could touch both walls with my arms spread. I thought about my 2003 Honda Civic with 180,000 miles on it, the one that made a grinding noise every time I turned left. I was 28 years old, working as a mid-level marketing manager at a pharmaceutical company, making $75,000 a year. In New York City, that was barely enough to survive. After taxes, rent, loan payments, and basic expenses, I saved maybe $300 a month if I was lucky. I'd been doing this for 6 years since graduating from NYU. 6 years of ramen dinners and saying no to drinks with coworkers because I couldn't afford a $15 beer. And I'd never complained. Not once. I'd been proud of my independence, proud that I'd put myself through college with a combination of scholarships, part-time jobs, and loans. Proud that I'd landed a decent job and worked my way up from assistant to coordinator to manager. My parents had seen that pride and mistaken it for not needing them. Amanda, on the other hand, was 25 and hadn't held a job in 3 years. She'd dropped out of Boston University after 1 semester, then tried community college and dropped out of that too. She'd moved back home, spent her days shopping and taking yoga classes, occasionally talking about starting a lifestyle blog or maybe becoming a personal stylist. Our parents had supported her every whim, paid for everything, never pushed her to be independent. And now she was $18 million richer. Clay. Mr. Patterson said gently, and I realized I'd been staring at the table for who knows how long. I know this is difficult. If you need a moment, I'm fine, I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. Is there anything else? Patterson glanced down at his notes, then at a manila envelope sitting on the edge of his desk. He seemed to hesitate, his hand hovering near it. Actually, your parents did leave you something. A letter. They wanted me to read it to you privately, if you'd like. Amanda's perfectly manicured fingernails drummed on the table. A letter? That's it. Amanda, Patterson said, his tone sharp. She fell silent, but I could see the satisfaction in her eyes. She'd won. She'd always been the favorite, and now she had the proof in the form of an $18 million check. I stood up, my legs unsteady. You can keep the letter. I don't need to hear it. Clay, please, Amanda started, but I was already moving toward the door. That's when Patterson cleared his throat, loud and deliberate. Wait. I stopped, my hand on the doorknob. There's one more thing. Patterson's voice had changed, become more formal. He picked up the manila envelope I'd noticed earlier, turning it over in his hands. It was sealed with red wax, old-fashioned and official-looking. Your grandfather left specific instructions that this envelope should only be opened at the reading of your parents' will, and only if certain conditions were met. My heart stuttered. Grandpa Henry, Head died 5 years ago, when I was 23. It'd been devastated. He was the only person in my family who'd ever really understood me. Patterson broke the wax seal and pulled out several pieces of paper. The top sheet was covered in Grandpa Henry's distinctive handwriting, all capital letters written with a fountain pen. He held it up so I could see my name at the top. For Clay. Amanda leaned forward in her chair. "What is that?" Patterson ignored her and began to read. "Dear Clay, if you're hearing this, it means your parents have passed. And I suspect I know exactly what happened at this will reading." Patterson's voice was steady, but I could barely hear him over the rushing sound in my ears. I moved back to my chair and sat down slowly, my eyes fixed on that letter. "I've watched your mother and father spoil Amanda while taking you for granted your whole life. I tried to talk sense into them, but they wouldn't listen. Your mother was my daughter, and I loved her. But she had blind spots when it came to you kids. She saw Amanda's neediness as love and your independence as indifference. I tried to tell her she was wrong. She wouldn't hear it." My throat tightened. Grandpa Henry had known. All along, had seen it, so I made my own arrangements. Patterson continued reading. 20 years ago, when you were 8 years old and spent that summer with me in Wyoming, I knew you were special. You weren't like other kids. You worked hard, asked questions, wanted to learn. You helped me mend fences and feed the cattle without being asked. You had character, Clay. Real character. I remembered that summer. It was the best 3 months of my childhood. Grandpa had taught me to ride horses, to fix machinery, to read the weather in the clouds. Head treated me like an adult, like my opinions mattered. That same year, Patterson read, I sold 40 acres of my ranch land to a natural gas company. Got a fair price for it, $200,000. I put that money in a trust fund for you. Didn't tell your parents. Didn't tell anyone except my lawyer and my financial advisor. Amanda's chair scraped against the floor. He what? Patterson held up a hand for silence and kept reading. I invested that money carefully over the years. Good stocks, some bonds, real estate investment trusts. The market was kind. The investments grew. He set down the letter and picked up another document, this one official-looking with a blue cover. Mr. Henry's trust fund for Clay has been managed by Fidelity Investments for the past 20 years. As of today's valuation, the trust is worth $22 million. The room went completely silent. I couldn't move, couldn't think, couldn't process what I'd just heard. $22 million. Amanda's face had gone from pale to bright red. That's impossible. That's not fair. Dad was his son-in-law. Mom was his daughter. That money should have been part of their estate. The trust was set up as an irrevocable living trust, Patterson explained calmly, completely separate from your grandfather's estate and your parents' estate. It's legally Clay's property, established before your parents even wrote their will. He turned back to the letter. There's more. Clay, I'm also leaving you my original ranch property, 200 acres in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, at the foot of the Tetons. The land is worth about $3 million now, maybe more. The ranch house needs work, but it's solid. Your grandmother and I built that house with our own hands in 1962. I felt tears burning in my eyes. Grandpa Ranch. I'd spent every summer there from age 8 to 18. It was my favorite place on earth. Wide open spaces, mountain air, the kind of silence that let you hear yourself think. But Clay, Patterson continued, his voice taking on a more serious tone. I'm not just handing you $25 million to waste. That would make me no better than your parents spoiling Amanda. I'm giving you a chance to prove to yourself what you're really made of. Here it comes, I thought. There's always a catch. Before you can access the trust fund, you must work my ranch for 1 full year. Live there. Run it. Make it operational. I've left instructions with my old ranch manager, Dale Morrison. He'll teach you what you need to know. At the end of 12 months, if you've fulfilled the requirements, the trust becomes fully available to you. You can sell the ranch, keep it, do whatever you want. But you have to do the work first. Amanda was on her feet now. This is insane. He can't do this. We need to contest it. The trust is ironclad, Patterson said firmly. I've reviewed it personally. Mr. Henry worked with one of the best estate attorneys in Wyoming to set this up. There are no legal grounds for contestation. He looked at me over his reading glasses. Clay, you have 60 days to make your decision. If you choose to accept the terms, you'll need to relocate to Wyoming and begin your year on the ranch. If you decline, or if you fail to meet the requirements, the trust dissolves and the assets are donated to the Nature Conservancy for land preservation in Wyoming. I found my voice, finally. What are the specific requirements? Patterson pulled out another sheet. You must live on the property for a minimum of 300 days out of the year. You must maintain the ranch in operational condition. Mr. Morrison will evaluate your progress at the 6-month and 12-month marks. The evaluation criteria include property maintenance, livestock management, and financial sustainability. Livestock, I said. I haven't been to the ranch in 10 years. Dale Morrison is expecting your call if you decide to accept, Patterson said. He slid a business card across the table. Has been maintaining the basic property upkeep, but the ranch hasn't been fully operational since your grandfather passed. Mr. Henry left funds to pay Dale's salary for 1 year to help you learn. I picked up the card. Dale Morrison. I remembered him vaguely. A leathery older man who'd worked with Grandpa. Had taught me to rope a fence post that one summer. Amanda slammed her hand on the table. So he gets $25 million for playing cowboy for a year? That's what you're telling me. He gets it for honoring your grandfather's wishes and proving he can handle the responsibility, Patterson corrected. The same way you received your inheritance for being named in your parents' will. She grabbed her purse, her face twisted with anger. This is garbage. You'll fail, Clay. You'll quit in a month and all that money will go to charity. You're not a rancher. You're a corporate marketing drone who's never done a day of real work in your life. She stormed out, her heels clicking sharply on the hardwood floor. The door slammed behind her. Patterson and I sat in silence for a moment. Then he smiled slightly. Your grandfather was quite a character. Yeah, I said softly. He was. He handed me the letter and all the accompanying documents. Take your time deciding. But Clay, your grandfather believed in you. That counts for something. I walked out of that office in a daze, Grandpa Henry's letter clutched in my hand. On the street, the afternoon sun was too bright, the traffic too loud. I stood on the corner of 57th and Park Avenue, surrounded by millions of people, and felt completely alone. Then I looked down at the letter again, at Grandpa's handwriting, and I heard his voice in my head as clearly as if he were standing next to me. You've got more grit than you know, son. Time to prove it. I pulled out my phone and dialed Dale Morrison's number. He answered on the second ring. This Clay? Yes, sir. How did you know? Been waiting for your call for 5 years. When can you get here? I looked around at the city I'd called home for a decade, at the skyscrapers and the taxicabs and the hot dog vendors, at everything I'd built, everything I'd worked for. Give me 2 weeks, I said. I gave my notice at work the next morning. My boss, a perpetually stressed woman named Carol, looked at me like I'd grown a second head. You're quitting to become a rancher in Wyoming. It's complicated, I said. Clay, you're on track for a senior manager position next year. That's $120,000 base salary plus bonus. You'd be insane to walk away from that. Maybe I was insane. But sitting in that office, staring at my computer screen filled with pharmaceutical marketing metrics, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Excitement. Purpose. Fear, yes. But the good kind of fear that meant I was about to do something that mattered. I spent the next 2 weeks selling or giving away almost everything I owned. My furniture went on Craigslist. My clothes got donated except for jeans, work shirts, and boots. I kept my books, my laptop, and a few photos. Everything else was just stuff. Amanda didn't call or text, not once. I drove west in my beat-up Honda, and with every mile, I felt lighter. By the time I crossed into Wyoming 3 days later, I was practically flying. The ranch sat in a valley about 40 minutes south of Jackson. I came around a curve in the road, and there it was, exactly as I remembered. A long gravel driveway leading to a log cabin-style ranch house, with a red barn and several outbuildings behind it. Beyond that, Rolling pastures stretched toward the Teton Mountains, their peaks still snow-capped even in late May. Dale Morrison was waiting on the porch. He looked older, his face more weathered, but his handshake was still like a vice grip. "Good to see you, son. Been too long. 10 years, I said. "Henry would have been proud you came," Dale said. "Lot of folks would have taken the easy money. There's no money to take if I don't do the work." Dale grinned. "Smart man. Come on. He'll show you around." The ranch was bigger than I remembered, and in worse shape. The house was structurally sound but needed paint, new windows, and a complete kitchen renovation. The barn had good bones but a leaking roof. Fences were down in multiple sections. The grazing fields were overgrown. "Your grandpa let things slide the last few years," Dale explained as we walked the property line. "He was sick longer than he let on. After he passed, I've been doing basic maintenance, but I'm 63 years old and got my own small place to run. I couldn't keep up with all this." "What do we need to do to make it operational?" I asked. Dale pulled out a small notebook and flipped it open. "First, fencing. We got about 10 miles of fence line, and half of it needs repair or replacement. Second, the barn roof. Third, we need livestock. Can't call it a ranch without animals. Cattle would be traditional, though some folks are doing bison now. Fourth, hay. We got 70 acres of good hay fields, but they need to be mowed, baled, stored for winter feed." I did some quick math in my head. "How much is this going to cost?" "You got about 50,000 in the ranch operating account your grandpa set up," Dale said. "That'll cover materials and a starter herd if we're smart about it. Your grandpa also arranged for me to get paid through the trust for this year, so my salary's covered. $50,000. It sounded like a lot, but I was already learning it wasn't. "When do we start?" I asked. "Dawn tomorrow. Hope you're ready." I wasn't ready. Not even close. But I showed up at 5:30 the next morning anyway, and Dale handed me a pair of work gloves and a post-hole digger. The first month was the hardest thing I'd ever done. My hands blistered, then calloused. My back ached constantly. I fell into bed every night at 8 p.m. and was up before sunrise. But slowly, steadily, I watched the ranch come back to life. We repaired fences, replaced boards in the barn, fixed the tractor, cleared the irrigation ditches. Dale taught me everything. How to set a fence post so it lasts 20 years, how to read the weather, how to tell good hay from bad, how to handle tools I'd never seen before. By the end of June, we were ready for cattle. Dale knew a rancher up in Montana who was selling off part of his herd. We drove up in Dale's truck with a livestock trailer and came back with 20 Angus cows and 1 bull. Watching them walk down the trailer ramp onto my land, onto Grandpa land, I felt something shift inside me. This was real. I was really doing this. I started documenting everything. I took photos of the progress, kept a detailed journal, tracked expenses down to the penny. At night, sitting on the porch with a beer, I'd write about what I'd learned that day. It felt important somehow, like I was building a record of my transformation. I called Amanda once in early July. She answered on the 5th ring. "What do you want, Clay? Just checking in, seeing how you're doing." "I'm fine. Living in the penthouse I bought in Tribeca." "I'm good. The ranch is coming together." There was a long pause. "I hope you fail," she said quietly. Then she hung up. I stared at my phone for a long time after that call. 3 months in, the ranch was actually starting to look like a ranch. The fences were solid, the barn had a new roof, the cattle were healthy and gaining weight. Dale and I had fallen into an easy rhythm. Had become more than a teacher. He was a friend. Maybe the best friend I'd ever had. That's when things started going wrong. It was Dale who noticed first, early on a Tuesday morning in late August. We were doing our rounds, checking on the herd, when he stopped suddenly. "Clay, look at that cow over there, the one by the water tank." I looked. One of the cows was standing oddly, her head down, not moving much. "What's wrong with her?" "Don't know, but I don't like it." We got closer, and I saw foam around her mouth. Her eyes looked glassy, unfocused. Dale's face went grim. "Call Doc Stevens. Now." Doc Stevens was the local large animal vet. He arrived within an hour, examined the cow, and then checked the water tank. He ran some tests right there with a field kit. You've got ethylene glycol in your water supply, he said. Antifreeze poisoning. How is that possible? I asked. Somebody put it there, Doc Stevens said bluntly. This doesn't happen naturally. Someone dumped it in your tank. The cow died that afternoon. Another one died the next day. Dale and I immediately switched the herd to a different water source and flushed the contaminated tank. But the damage was done. 2,000-pound animals, dead because someone wanted to sabotage me. I was furious, terrified, and confused all at once. Who would do this? We found the answer a week later. Dale had insisted we set up trail cameras around the property after the poisoning. Good quality ones, the kind hunters use, with night vision and motion sensors. On a Thursday night at 2:15 a.m., the camera near the back pasture caught a figure in dark clothes approaching the new water tank Wed set up. The person looked around, pulled something from a backpack, and started to pour it into the tank. Dale and I watched the footage on my laptop in the ranch house kitchen. When the person looked up briefly, the camera's night vision caught his face. I recognized him immediately. Trevor Hutchins, Amanda's boyfriend. I'd met him once at a family dinner 2 years ago. Slick hair, expensive watch, talked constantly about his investment portfolio. That son of a... Dale started. I'm calling the sheriff, I said. Sheriff Paulson came out that afternoon, watched the footage, and took a copy. But his face told me everything I needed to know before he even spoke. Clay, I can charge him with trespassing and maybe vandalism. But without proof he actually poisoned the first tank, and without proof he was going to poison this one, I can't charge him with the cattle deaths. You can see him right there. I pointed at the screen. I see him approaching a water tank. I don't see what's in that container he's holding. His lawyer will say it was water, or some innocent liquid. And your sister provided an alibi for the first incident. Says he was with her in New York. Shez lying, probably. But I can't prove it. Trevor lawyered up within hours. Big firm out of Jackson. Probably cost him $20,000. They claimed he was exploring the property. That head heard Clay was struggling and wanted to see if he could help. The prosecutor, a tired-looking woman named Martinez, told me straight. Without concrete evidence of intent, this goes nowhere. I'm sorry. By the time Wed moved all the cattle to clean water sources and installed a filtration system, Wed lost 3 more cows. 5 dead in total, out of a herd of 20. That was a quarter of my livestock. Gone. And then Patterson called with worse news. Clay, there's a clause in the trust documentation I need to make you aware of. The ranch must be operational and self-sustaining at the end of the 12-month period. That means you need to demonstrate the ranch can support itself financially. With the loss of 5 cattle, you're going to have a hard time meeting that threshold. Are you serious? Someone sabotaged me. I know. I'm not saying it's fair. I'm telling you what the trust requires. Your grandfather wanted to ensure you built something real, not just survive 12 months. I hung up and sat on the porch steps, my head in my hands. Everything I'd worked for, every blister and sore muscle and early morning, was slipping away because my sister and her criminal boyfriend wanted to destroy me. Dale sat down next to me. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Finally, he said, You gonna quit? I don't know. I admitted. How do I fight this? Same way you fought everything else. One day at a time. Well, figure it out. But I wasn't sure we would. I spent my entire savings replacing those cattle, $23,000. Everything I'd managed to save over 6 years of working in New York, gone in a single purchase. Dale and I drove to a ranch auction in Idaho and bought 6 young heifers to rebuild the herd. The new water filtration system cost another $8,000, money I didn't have. I put it on credit cards. Then the tractor broke down, needed a new transmission. $5,000, more credit cards. By September, I was carrying $30,000 in credit card debt at interest rates that made me sick to think about. I was working 18-hour days, barely sleeping, living on coffee and sandwiches. The ranch account Grandpa had set up was almost empty. That's when Amanda called. Hi, Clay. Her voice was sickeningly sweet. What do you want? I heard you're having some trouble with the ranch. Cattle dying, equipment breaking. That must be so stressful. My hand tightened on the phone. Cut to it, Amanda. I want to help. Am willing to buy the ranch from you. $500,000, cash. You can walk away, pay off your debts, start fresh somewhere. It's a generous offer. You poisoned my cattle. I have no idea what you're talking about. Trevor was never convicted of anything, remember? He was just trying to help. Help by killing my animals. Clay, you're clearly struggling. You're not cut out for this ranching life. You're a city person, a corporate person. There's no shame in admitting you made a mistake. Take the money, walk away with dignity. I wanted to scream at her, to tell her exactly what I thought of her and her criminal boyfriend. Instead, I kept my voice level. No. What? I said no. I'm not selling. Not to you. Not to anyone. You're going to lose everything, Clay. The trust, the ranch, all of it. And for what? Pride. For Grandpa. For myself. For something you wouldn't understand. She laughed, harsh and bitter. Fine. Fail then. He'll see you at month 12, brother. Well, see who's still standing. She hung up. I stood there in the barn, surrounded by tools and hay and the smell of livestock, and I felt utterly alone. But I kept working. What else could I do? Dale became more than a ranch manager. He became a father figure, filling a role my own father had never bothered with. In the evenings, after Wed finished the day's work, he'd tell me stories about Grandpa Henry, about the time Henry had broken his leg in 3 places but still rode out to check on the cattle because a storm was coming, about how Henry had helped every neighbor within 50 miles at one time or another, never asking for anything in return. Your grandpa was the best man I ever knew, Dale said one night. We were sitting on the porch, watching the sun set behind the Tetons. He saw something in you that your parents missed. Some people, they only see what they want to see. Do you think I can actually do this? I asked. Make it the full year. Dale was quiet for a moment. I think you already have done it. You just don't see it yet. At month 9, disaster struck again. A massive autumn storm rolled through, the kind that Dale said only happened once every 10 years. 60-mile-per-hour winds, 4 inches of rain in 6 hours. Hail the size of golf balls. The storm destroyed half the barn roof Wed just replaced, tore down 3 sections of fence line. The cattle panicked and broke through the weakened fences, scattering across the property and onto the neighboring ranch. It took us 3 days to round them all up. One heifer had run 5 miles and gotten stuck in a ravine. We had to call the fire department to help extract her. I called the insurance company, desperate. The agent reviewed my policy and delivered the bad news. Act of God. Not covered under your current plan. You'd need the premium ranch policy for storm damage, and you opted for basic coverage. Of course I had, because basic was all I could afford. Repairs cost another $15,000. I maxed out my remaining credit cards. I was now $50,000 in debt, with no way to pay it off unless I made it to month 12 and accessed the trust. I was trapped. If I quit, it'd be buried in debt with nothing to show for it. If I stayed and failed, same result. The only way out was through. Amanda knew it too. She started posting on social media, flaunting her new life. Pictures of her penthouse with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park, her new Mercedes, expensive dinners at Michelin-starred restaurants. And she tagged me in every post, made sure I saw it all. One post said, "Living my best life while some people play cowboy. Some of us are meant to be winners." She included a laughing emoji. I stopped looking at social media after that. October came, then November. The work never stopped. Winter was approaching, and we had to prepare. Hay needed to be stored. The barn had to be weather-sealed. The cattle needed supplemental feeding as the grass died back. I was exhausted down to my bones. There were days I didn't think I could lift another bale of hay, hammer another nail, fix another broken fence. But I did it anyway, because what choice did I have? Then, at month 10, the final blow landed. A certified letter arrived from Patterson and Associates. My hands shook as I opened it. Dear Clay, I regret to inform you that Amanda Clay has filed a legal challenge to the Henry Clay Trust. The challenge asserts that Mr. Henry Clay was not mentally competent at the time the trust was created, and therefore the trust should be considered invalid. I couldn't read anymore. I called Patterson immediately. She's claiming Grandpa wasn't competent? That's insane. She's hired a firm in New York, a very expensive one. They found a psychiatrist willing to testify that your grandfather exhibited signs of early-onset dementia 20 years ago. That's a lie. Grandpa was sharp as a tack. I know, Clay, but she's building a case. If she wins, the trust gets dissolved. Under intestate succession law, the assets would be split between you and Amanda as his grandchildren. So it'd get half. Eventually, but here's the problem. The court date is set for 2 weeks after your 12-month deadline. Even if you successfully complete the year, the trust will be frozen until the lawsuit resolves. That could take years, and the legal fees to fight this will cost you at least $150,000. I sat down hard on the porch steps. I don't have $150,000. I don't have $15,000. I'm buried in debt from keeping this ranch running. I know. I'm sorry, Clay. I've been doing this for 30 years, and I've never seen anything this cruel. After I hung up, I sat there for a long time, watching the sun sink behind the mountains. I'd given up everything for this. My job, my apartment, my whole life in New York. I'd worked harder than I'd ever worked in my life. I'd poured my savings and my health and my heart into this ranch, and Amanda was going to take it all away with a lawsuit I couldn't afford to fight. Dale found me there an hour later, still sitting in the gathering darkness. "You look like hell," he said. "It's over. Amanda's going to win. That's so. She's got lawyers, money, everything. I've got nothing." Dale settled down on the step next to me. "You got more than you think. But you need to hear something first. Story I should have told you a long time ago." I looked at him. "What story?" "About your grandpa. And about me. And about some things we set in motion 5 years ago." Dale pulled a key from his pocket, old and brass, worn smooth from years of handling. "Come with me to the barn." I followed him across the yard, confused and exhausted. Inside the barn, Dale led me to the tack room in the back, a small space filled with saddles and bridles and riding equipment. He moved a saddle stand aside, revealing a floorboard that looked slightly different from the others. He used the brass key to unlock a hidden compartment built into the floor. Inside was a metal lockbox, about the size of a briefcase. "Your grandpa and I were best friends for 42 years, Dale said quietly. "Started working together in 1983. We built this ranch together, really. He owned it, but I was more than an employee. We were partners in everything but paperwork." He opened the lockbox. Inside were stacks of documents, USB drives, and old VHS tapes that had been converted to DVD. 5 years ago, when Henry got sick, he knew his time was limited. And he knew your parents would probably cut you out of their will. Had seen how they treated you versus Amanda your whole life. Made him sick. Dale pulled out one of the DVDs. Your grandpa spent the last 6 months of his life making these. Called them his insurance policy. Insurance against what? Against someone claiming he wasn't mentally competent. He handed me the DVD case. On it, in Grandpa's handwriting, was a date. March 15th, 5 years ago, 2 months before he died. "There are 32 videos in here," Dale said. "Each one is dated and time-stamped." Henry recorded himself every few days, discussing different topics: philosophy, mathematics, current events, memories. He recites poetry in some of them, works out complex problems, talks about his intentions for the trust. I stared at the DVD, not quite believing what I was hearing. In the last video, Dale continued. He looks right at the camera and says, "I, Henry Robert Clay, being of sound mind and body, do hereby affirm that the trust I have created for my grandson Clay is my true and final wish. I understand that some members of my family may question this decision. I am fully aware of what I am doing and why. Clay is the grandson who understands what truly matters. I am making this recording to document my mental capacity and my firm intentions. Why didn't you show me these before?" "Because you didn't need them before. Henry said only to use them if Amanda tried exactly what she's trying now." He predicted this, Clay. All of it. I felt tears burning in my eyes. Grandpa had known. Even from beyond the grave, he was still protecting me. "There's more," Dale said. He pulled out a thick folder. "Your grandpa hired a private investigator 3 years before he died. Had him look into Amanda's life, her finances, her relationships. Henry loved Amanda, but he wasn't blind. He knew she had problems. He opened the folder. Inside were reports, photographs, bank statements, drug problems, prescription pills, mostly. She's good at hiding it, but it's there. Gambling debts at 3 casinos in Atlantic City. Multiple instances of fraud. Small stuff, but a pattern. She wrote bad checks, scammed her roommate out of rent money, took out credit cards in other people's names. I felt sick. Grandpa knew all this. He knew. It broke his heart. But he also knew that giving Amanda millions of dollars wouldn't help her. It would destroy her. That's why he set up your trust the way he did. He wanted to give you the tools to succeed and her the time to grow up. He hoped your parents would do the same, but they didn't." Dale closed the folder. "There's one more thing. Something even I just found out recently." He looked uncomfortable. "I've been documenting your progress here. Daily logs, photographs, expense reports. Henry asked me to do that, to prove you put in the work. But I also hired a private investigator of my own 2 months ago to check on Amanda and this Trevor character." "Why?" "Because something didn't smell right. Guy shows up in her life right after she inherits $18 million. That's not coincidence." He pulled out another folder. This one newer. Trevor Hutchins isn't his real name. It's Trevor Matthews. Has got a criminal record in 3 states. Fraud, embezzlement, identity theft. He targets wealthy women, gains their trust, steals their money through fake investment schemes. My stomach dropped. How much has he stolen from Amanda? As of last week, $4,300,000. I stared at Dale, unable to speak. He set up a series of offshore investment accounts, told Amanda he was putting her money in high-yield international funds, showed her fake statements, fake returns. She thinks she's made money. In reality, he's been siphoning it to accounts in the Cayman Islands and Switzerland. Does she know? Not yet. My investigator just compiled the evidence. Bank records, emails, everything. Dale looked at me steadily. "I'm giving you a choice, Clay. We can use this information to destroy them both, turn Trevor in to the FBI, expose Amanda as an accomplice, even though she probably doesn't know what he's doing. Or we can use it strategically, end the legal challenge, save your trust, and maybe save your sister from her own stupidity." I walked out of the barn into the cold November night. The stars were out, millions of them, the kind of stars you can only see far from cities. I thought about Amanda as a kid, before everything got complicated. I remembered her following me around, wanting to play, wanting her big brother's attention. When had we become enemies? I thought about what Grandpa would want. Had left me the tools to win. But what kind of man did I want to be when I won? I went back into the barn. We do this the right way. We save the trust. We stop Trevor. And we try to save Amanda if we can. Dale smiled. Henry would have said the same thing. "But there's one more thing I need," I said. "Your adjacent property. You said you own 300 acres next to mine." "I do. How would you feel about partnering up? Combining operations? Making this into a real working ranch?" Dale's smile widened. "I thought you'd never ask." We shook hands, and I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. 3 days later, I flew to New York with Dale and Patterson. Wed arranged a meeting at Patterson's office, told Amanda it was to discuss a settlement. Shed agreed immediately, probably thinking I was ready to give up. She arrived in a black town car, wearing a dress that probably cost $3,000. Trevor was with her, all slicked back hair and expensive cologne. They walked into Patterson's conference room like they owned the place. "Clay," Amanda said, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. "I'm glad you're finally being reasonable. Sit down," Patterson said. His tone was pure business. They sat. Trevor had an arrogant smirk on his face. Patterson slid a folder across the table. "Before we discuss any settlement, there are some things you need to see." Amanda opened the folder. Inside were stills from Grandpa Henry's videos, time-stamped and dated. Screenshots of him reciting Shakespeare, solving differential equations on a whiteboard, discussing the philosophical implications of artificial intelligence. "What is this?" Amanda asked. "Proof of your grandfather's mental competency," Patterson said. 32 videos, all made in the last 6 months of his life, all clearly demonstrating he was of sound mind. Any psychiatrist who watches these videos will testify that Henry Clay was fully competent. Your lawsuit has no merit. Amanda's face went pale. Trevor leaned over to look at the documents, his jaw tightening. "You can withdraw the lawsuit now," Patterson continued. "Or we can go to court and you'll lose. Your choice." "This doesn't prove anything," Trevor said quickly. "Anyone can act competent on camera." "Then let's discuss something else," I said. I pulled out my own folder, the one from Dale's investigator. "Let's talk about you, Trevor. Or should I call you Matthews?" Trevor's face went completely white. I opened the folder, pulled out his criminal record, his real identity, the trail of women head scammed over the past 15 years. Then I pulled out the bank records. "You've stolen $4,300,000 from my sister," I said, my voice cold. "Fake investment accounts, offshore transfers, all documented right here. The FBI is very interested in talking to you about wire fraud." Amanda grabbed the papers, her hands shaking as she read through them. Her face went from confused to horrified to devastated in the span of 30 seconds. "Amanda," Trevor started, reaching for her hand. She jerked away from him like head burned her. "You stole from me. Baby, it's not what it looks like. I can explain. $4 million. Her voice was rising, shrill with panic. "That's not real. Tell me that's not real." "We have everything," Dale said quietly. "Every transfer, every fake statement you sent her, every email. It's over, Trevor." Trevor stood up so fast his chair fell over. "You can't prove intent. I'm an investment advisor. Sometimes investments don't pan out. That's not fraud." "Actually," Patterson said, pulling out another document, "it is fraud when you fabricate account statements and use falsified credentials. The SEC is also interested, and let me show you something else." He turned his laptop around. On the screen was an email from Trevor to an associate, dated 6 months ago. "Hooked another big fish. Sister of a stubborn rancher, 18 million inheritance. Should be able to pull 5 or 6 million before she gets suspicious. We'll split 50-50 as usual." Trevor looked at the screen, and all the color drained from his face. "You have 1 minute to leave this office," Patterson said, "before I call the police. They're waiting downstairs." Trevor looked at Amanda, at me, at Patterson. Then he bolted for the door. He didn't make it to the elevator. 2 FBI agents, who Patterson had asked to wait in the hallway, arrested him right there. We heard his shouting, his threats, his demands for a lawyer, growing fainter as they took him away. Amanda was crying now, silent tears streaming down her perfect makeup. She looked at me with such raw pain that I almost felt sorry for her. "You must hate me," she whispered. "No," I said, and I meant it. "I'm disappointed in you, but you're still my sister. I tried to destroy you. I poisoned your cattle. I hired lawyers to take your trust. I wanted you to fail. I know. Why are you helping me? Why didn't you just let the FBI arrest me too? I'm probably an accomplice, because Grandpa Henry wanted better for both of us," I said, "and because you're my sister, even if you've been a terrible one." Patterson cleared his throat. "Amanda, we need to discuss terms." "Terms. Clay is willing to keep you out of the criminal investigation," Patterson explained. "Trevor will claim you had no knowledge of the fraud, and we won't contradict that. But you need to drop the lawsuit against the trust immediately. Sign a document affirming you will never again challenge its validity." Amanda nodded, still crying. "There's more," I said. I slid a document across the table. "I'm offering you $500,000 from my trust, once I access it, and I'll pay for you to work with a financial counselor and a therapist for 1 year. Why would you do that? Because you need help. Real help. The drugs, the gambling, the bad decisions. You're in a hole, Amanda. I'm offering you a rope. What do I have to do? Get clean. Actually clean, not just pretending. Get a job, any job. Start rebuilding your life the right way. Go to therapy. Learn to manage money. Show me you can be responsible. And if I can't, then you get nothing. But I believe you can. You're not stupid, Amanda. You're just lost. She looked at the document for a long time. Then she picked up a pen and signed it. I'm sorry, Clay, for everything. You deserved better than how I treated you. Yeah, I did. She stood up, wiping her eyes. Grandpa was right about you. You're the good one. She walked out of the office, leaving behind the settlement document and years of bitterness. Patterson looked at me. You know she might not follow through. She might take the money and disappear. Maybe, I said. But I have to try. Grandpa would have tried. Dale clapped me on the shoulder. Let's go home, son. You've got a ranch to finish running. We flew back to Wyoming that night. I watched the lights of New York fade behind us, and I felt something shift in my chest. Peace, maybe. Or just exhaustion. But the work wasn't done yet. I completed my 12th month on the ranch on March 15th, exactly 1 year after Eid first arrived. The date felt significant, the same date Grandpa had made his first video. Patterson flew out to Wyoming for the evaluation. He walked the property with Dale and me, reviewed the books, inspected the livestock. We now had 25 head of cattle, all healthy. The ranch had turned a small profit of $8,000 for the year, enough to prove sustainability. The buildings were in good repair. The fences were solid. You've exceeded every requirement, Patterson said. He handed me a document. As of today, the trust is officially released to you. $22 million, plus the ranch property. Congratulations, Clay. I expected to feel elation, or relief, or triumph. Instead, I just felt tired. Good tired, but tired. There's more, Patterson added. Amanda hasn't contested the trust. She signed an affidavit 2 months ago, reaffirming its validity, and she completed a 30-day inpatient treatment program in Connecticut. She's been sober for 67 days. Really. She's working as a teacher's aide at an elementary school, making $32,000 a year. She's renting a studio apartment in New Haven. According to her therapist, who I spoke with at Amanda's request, she's making genuine progress. I felt a weight lift that I hadn't even known I was carrying. Good. That's really good. Will you still give her the $500,000? Yes, but not all at once. $50,000 a year for 10 years, as long as she stays clean and employed. I'll set it up through a trust with conditions. Patterson smiled. Your grandfather would be proud. Over the next 6 months, I used some of the trust money to expand the ranch. Dale and I officially became partners, combining our properties into a single 600-acre operation. We bought more cattle, upgraded equipment, hired 2 ranch hands to help with the work. We started a program called the Henry Foundation, bringing inner-city kids out to the ranch each summer to learn about agriculture and nature. The ranch became profitable, really profitable. Not because I needed the money, but because it felt good to build something real. I met Sarah in June at a community meeting about grazing rights. She was a large animal veterinarian, the one who'd helped save my herd after the poisoning. She was smart and funny and didn't care that I had money. She cared that I showed up at 5 a.m. to feed cattle and wasn't afraid to get mud on my boots. We started dating. By November, Shed moved into the ranch house. By Christmas, I'd asked her to marry me. 18 months after the will reading, Amanda came to visit. She drove up in a 10-year-old Toyota, wearing jeans and a sweater from Target. She looked healthier than I'd ever seen her, clear-eyed, present. This place is amazing, she said, standing on the porch looking out at the Tetons. It's home, I said. We spent the afternoon walking the property. I introduced her to Dale, to Sarah, to the ranch hands. She met the cattle, fed them hay, laughed when one of the calves licked her hand. That night, we sat on the porch with coffee, watching the sun set. I don't remember the last time we actually talked, Amanda said. Really talked, I mean. Not argued, not competed, just talked. It's been a long time. I've been going to therapy twice a week. We talk about Mom and Dad a lot, about how they raised us. Yeah. My therapist says they were emotionally neglectful with you and emotionally enmeshed with me. They ignored you and suffocated me. Different kinds of damage, same result. 2 kids who didn't know how to be healthy. That's pretty much it. I said. I always thought you hated me, that you thought you were better than me. I never hated you. I was jealous sometimes, sure, but mostly I just wanted you to see me, to acknowledge I existed. I see you now, she said quietly. I see what you built here, what you became. I'm proud of you, Clay. I'm proud of you, too. Getting sober, getting a job, doing the work. That's harder than anything I did. We sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Amanda said, "Do you think Mom and Dad would be proud of us now?" I don't know. Maybe. But it doesn't matter anymore. We're not doing this for them. No, she agreed. We're doing it for us. She left the next morning with a promise to visit again at Christmas. As I watched her drive away, I thought about the journey that had brought me here. Losing my parents, being disinherited, discovering Grandpa Gift, fighting for the ranch, nearly losing everything, and finally standing here on this land that was truly mine. I thought about a conversation it had with Grandpa when I was 16, sitting on this same porch. It asked him what made a person successful. "It's not money or fame," Head said. "Success is building something that matters to you and being able to look yourself in the mirror at the end of the day. It's knowing your worth isn't tied to what other people think of you. It's being strong enough to be kind even when you have every reason not to be." I finally understood what he meant. Sarah came out and stood beside me, her hand finding mine. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said. "I really am." The trust money sat mostly untouched in investments. We lived off the ranch income, about $90,000 a year, which was more than enough. I'd paid off all my debts, set up Amanda's conditional trust, funded the Henry Foundation, and put the rest away for the future. Maybe for kids someday. Maybe for the next person who needed a second chance, because that's what Grandpa had really given me. Not money, not land. A second chance to discover who I really was when everything else was stripped away. I was Clay Morrison, rancher, partner to Dale, fiancé to Sarah, brother to Amanda. A man who'd learned that the hardest year of his life could become the most important. That being overlooked could become a gift. That independence wasn't the same as being alone. That you could lose everything and still end up rich in the ways that mattered. I'd earned my own way, just like my parents said, but not in the way they meant. I'd earned self-respect, purpose, and the knowledge that I could build something meaningful with my own two hands. And standing there on my land, with the woman I loved beside me and a future that felt solid and real. It never felt wealthier in my life. The sun set behind the Tetons, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Tomorrow I'd be up at dawn to feed the cattle, fix a fence, check on the new calves. The work would never end. And I was grateful for that. Because the work was the point. It had always been the point. Grandpa Henry knew it. And now, finally, so did I. If you've ever felt overlooked or undervalued by the people who were supposed to love you most, I'd love to hear your story. Have you ever had someone believe in you when others didn't? Drop a comment below and let me know. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel for more stories about resilience and second chances, and share this with someone who needs to hear that their worth isn't determined by other people's opinions. Thank you for listening, and remember, the hardest paths often lead to the most beautiful destinations. Take care of yourselves out there, and I'll see you in the next story.